talk about long-term services and support for individuals with disabilities. And this is by Savina Butler. On the first slide, it talks about what is long-term services and supports. Long-term services and supports is what is used by individuals, no matter what their age. They may have limited functions. Sometimes they may have a chronic illness as well. And sometimes they also may have a mental health secondary illness that goes along with that. They need assistance with all their activities of daily living. And it may not be all, it may be some, and it may be partial assistance to do with just giving medications, or it may be dressing, bathing, meal prep, taking them to the doctor, whatever they may be. That may be. Why long-term services and supports is needed. Um, just recently, the state has been moving away from institutional care, and this was a very expensive care that the state normally took care of. Institutional care really got away from keeping individuals independent, and the majority of the individuals didn't belong in an institution. And that's pretty much where the support of community-based services and supports came into play. Um, they moved to the community and home-based supports, and these supports more entitled the individual to become more independent. That was the goal, is to keep them independent as possible, so that they didn't have to rely on their caregivers for as much as they thought they needed. It also helped reduce the cost of the amount that the state would pay if you were in an institution. The challenges of home-based and community supports. In 2009, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act was signed, and what this did was it gave the state temporary increase um, for Medicaid services. So the increase was 6.2%. And this was only supposed to last for a short amount of time, but it lasted until August of 2010. And it actually was extended to June 2011. And that's when it dropped to a 3.2 increase. And one of the difficulties that the state had was that with this increase and decrease issue, it wasn't always a good thing. Granted, Medicaid was given this extra funding to help individuals maybe be put on the waiver, or it was helped to extend individuals' individual budgeted amounts so that they could afford to pay for the whole year. And then once this was decreased, it kind of hurt that maybe not everybody that was on the list was funded like they had hoped would be. Those who maybe had full funding for the full year, some of their funding got decreased because they couldn't afford, or the state couldn't afford to cover the full 365 days a year for day services and residential services and other providers. So that was one thing that had to really be looked at. The other thing is the amount the individual was given. So individual budgeted amounts maybe were fully funded to cover for a full year of residential services where they helped you, where you lived in a group home setting, and you were covered for a full year for day services where you went to a program that provided you that support and services for 8 hours a day. Um, as of now, they're not covering the full 300 or 8 hours a day of day services. They've kind of decreased that amount of funding and made sure that the residential part, because that's the important part that goes 365 days a year, holidays, weekends. They need to make sure that that was covered. So that's where the challenges that the state had to deal with is the increase and decrease of the budget.